after a season at Leeds as the guy with 11 goals and 3 assists. Now, the 3 assists are the one where I go just 3 assists. When you look at Dembele's function and what he does, he's no longer a goal scorer almost in any way. He's just an assist man. And it seems like Raphinha is a bit of the opposite. He did that in 36 appearances as well. Now, again, considering his teammates and considering the scores of those games and what Leeds were trying to just put together through survival, as opposed to trying to thrash teams 4-5, or even when Leeds were brought right back up under Bielsa, right? Like the Leeds United that we saw wasn't necessarily the promoted Bielsa version that just went crazy in their first return to the Premier League. But what kind of expected output? I think you could say this numerically, but even functionally, that we can expect from Raphinha this season.
I think, to be fair, I know his numbers last season suggested more of a goal scorer than assist maker, but I think the important thing to mention was, I don't know if you're a fan of like things like expected assists and stats like this and that lot, but
to the point that my listeners let me know the frustrations of my reliance on those on said numbers. Yes.
But in terms of that, I think it was like kind of like about triple that, I think, was his expected assists. So he kind of expected 9. It has to be mentioned, we didn't have an out-and-out centre forwards all season, and we were very, very wasteful in front of goal. So even on the eye,
you're saying Lewandowski is an upgrade to the number 9 at Leeds United last year.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
You're making that claim. You're going out on a limb.
Oh yeah, that hot take. Yeah, I'm confident. Despite his lack of proven quality in the quality league, I'm going to back Lewandowski to be a better centre forward, to be fair. But no, it's not even just Lewandowski. You know, obviously Ansu Fati and Ferran Torres. Actually, to be fair, Ferran Torres was quite wasteful last season, but I think he will improve in that regards. And yeah, I think he's going to get a decent amount of assists. I'd imagine, for me, I was looking at potential numbers yesterday. I think if he starts 25, 30 games, I'm pretty confident he'd get at least kind of like 20 goals and assists, so maybe 10 and 10. But I think he can do more than that. You know, if he's playing more regular than that, I think you'd be talking 15, 10 assists, something like that. Yeah, I think he will be pretty even in that regard. I think it's also important to mention that Leeds, he was the main set piece taker, main penalty taker. I'm not sure if that'd be as set a thing at Barcelona, although maybe to be fair. I'd probably prefer Raphinha over a free kick than what players Barcelona have had over free kicks in the last sort of 2 years the last year or so since Messi's left. I think Barcelona have lacked that set piece threat. So yeah, I still think I'd probably put Raphinha on a lot of the set pieces, to be honest. So yeah, I see no reason why he can't get at least 20 goals and assists unless he's literally not playing. I think he'll score a lot more goals than Dembele. I think he's a much better finisher than Dembele. Is he the same level of creative threat? Is anyone the same level of creative threat as what Dembele has been in the last sort of year or so? I think the fact that
not just Barcelona, anywhere.
He has exploded in the last year in that kind of regard. But if it is just Dembele being the creator and, you know, Raphinha in the front three with Lewandowski on the other side, I've no question that Raphinha can develop his game to become more of an inside forward than a winger kind of thing. I'd say Dembele is just an out-and-out winger. I don't think he's as effective if you're playing through the middle or really, really narrow. I think he has to be playing on the touchline up against a fullback, beating the fullback and getting a crossing or a cutback, or combining with, you know, not Dani Alves, but whoever's playing at right back next season for Barcelona. I think Raphinha's a different threat in that kind of sense. But I see no reason with his ball striking, his ability to shoot from distance. Yeah, I kind of compare it to, you know, Mahrez going to Man City to an extent, in terms of, I think obviously it's fair to say Pep and Xavi share similar systems, not totally similar, but in terms of what he wants the wingers to do. I think it was Pep who said it himself, that playing in a positional play system, the wingers have to be very, very patient because they have to stay in position. They can't just drift inside to get the ball because the numerical superiority on that side of the pitch is gone. You know, it doesn't matter even if you're a wonderful footballer, you have to stay wide. You have to be willing to stay in that particular zone on the pitch. Very, very important for the wingers. And yeah, I think Raphinha's got the patience to do that for me. And if you can see what the end product is, the fact that he's got Lewandowski to aim at, then yeah, there's no reason at all why not. And yeah, I do genuinely think he's versatile. I think when I look at Barcelona's current options, I think Fati and Torres, I don't think excel creatively. I think they're much more goal scorer based. Dembele, the total opposite. I think Raphinha is that go-between kind of thing in that kind of sense. You know, which Barcelona have lacked, I think, for a fair while, to be fair, I'd say.
As I've been doing for like 6 months, I do want to defend the numbers of Ferran Torres a little bit, where his goals and assists just in the half a season were 6 and 6. So even if we extrapolate that over a full season, there's a chance that Ferran Torres gets you 10 and 10. And if Raphinha gives you something like 10 and 10, and if Dembele gives you something like 7 and 14, right? Like now, or not even 7, but let's say he gives you 5 and 14 or 16 or 17, right? If he plays a whole season and is healthy. One of my favorite things to do for preseason, as people know, I keep we'll say predicting or keep throwing numbers in there now, but forward wise, it's a numbers game, right? And for Barcelona, can they defend? Can they not give up the number of goals? That's whether or not they win trophies. But by and large, coming to total number of goals, right? It's flabbergasting that Aubameyang and Memphis Depay were close to the tops of the goals charts for Barca, and they were under 15, and by some number even. But yeah, so the numbers, I'll have to break all those down. That's something that I'll have in a future show here. But now just a few more real quick here at the end. You mentioned Brazil before. He has 3 goals and 7 appearances for him. And I think this one's pretty cut and dry. You might even just be able to agree with me here that moving to a club like Barcelona from Leeds United, who might next season also be in a relegation fight again, based on who they're able to bring in and what they're able to put forward with Jesse Marsch and that crew. But it seems like his chances to go to Qatar have now almost doubled by just moving to Barcelona. We have seen this so many times over and over again, where going back to a player like a Junior Firpo, where for Real Betis, I don't know if he was really getting a look. And then the minute he comes up, I mean, even like Gavi, if Gavi had come up for almost any other club in Spain, if not for Real Madrid or Barcelona, is he currently playing under Luis Enrique in the Spanish national team? I'm not sure about that. But when you do play for Barcelona, you're immediately coming into your national team because you can handle pressure, because you can play at the high level, because you have to be consistent or you will not play. You will be replaced. That is the biggest thing at these clubs, where you, especially again, the Barcelonas, the Real Madrids, the Manchester Cities, if you fall out of favor or if you have a run of games, now you're out of the squad. Now you're a substitute. And that's how quickly things change. And when you're playing at World Cups, you're playing in these big international competitions, you've got to get it right. You've got 7 games to win the World Cup. That's what you've got. You got 7 games.
If you're bad on that first group game, then you're out the team for the second group game and you might not play again at the tournament. That's the simple fact. And that is the cutthroat environment that Raphinha is going to get himself accustomed to. He's still a star, but he's no longer like, for Leeds United fans, it was like, at my age, I'm the same age as Raphinha, but we haven't seen players like this in 20 years who can just basically just win you a game on their own and at the highest level. He's going from his total, everyone adores him at Leeds kind of thing. Everyone absolutely adores, even when he's gone, people still talking glowing terms about him. But Barcelona, it's very brutal. I think, he saw it with Coutinho to an extent. I remember going early on to a Barcelona game when Coutinho had signed, and it hadn't started particularly well for him, and the crowd wasn't particularly receptive to him, and he seemed to just go into hiding after that point and never really came out of it. And same with Griezmann, in terms of being the superstar at Atletico Madrid, and he went to just being like, he's not as good as Lionel Messi. He's not really accepting that he's not the superstar anymore. But I think Raphinha, in terms of being from such a humble background, such a humble person himself, having met him a couple of times, and it's certainly his family actually a couple of times, and he's such a humble person that I think it's not a problem for him in that kind of sense that, he might be facing a cutthroat environment. He's had to fight throughout for his Barcelona career, but certainly with Brazil, there's no question about it. The bigger team you play for, I don't necessarily agree with it, but the bigger team you play for, the better chance you have in international football. It's just the way it works. And arguably, that's why international football isn't at its strongest at this moment in time, that a lot of the form players get missed out because they're only playing for like West Ham or Leeds. So, I think it's almost a sure thing for me that he's going to be starting games on that right-hand side for Brazil, unless something goes horribly wrong between now and November.
Yeah, well, I probably should have started with this question, but instead we're going to end with this question. And it's probably going to be your longest answer potentially too. So as far as we're going to dumb this down for the internet, unfortunately, because that tends to be what happens with discourse. So with Kool-Aid's watching Raphinha, even in preseason, right? What would you say his greatest strength will be? I think we have an assumption that there's going to be a lot. If the word dribbling doesn't come out of your mouth, I'm going to be surprised. But then on the other side of it, what will potentially frustrate Kool-Aid's about him And then the follow up to that a little bit is how reliant on that left foot is he? So you could do them, you could break that up as well. So yeah, we're looking for the best, the positives, like what we're looking for and what you expect fans to get excited about. And I think this is beyond just goals and assists, because again, if a player produces, obviously that is going to endear him to Kool-Aid's, and because that wins games, goals and assists wins games. But as far as the things that he's doing otherwise, that if this is his function in Xavi's system, this is his job in a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-3. Because again, every time Dembele decided to defend under Xavi, he almost got a standing ovation, because you're like, oh, this guy actually does defend and go back, like sometimes a little bit. Okay, all right, that's a great thing.
I think the big thing for me, and it might seem a strange thing to say since obviously Dembele's form, but the reason I mentioned earlier at the top of the show about his aura, I think when you watch him, those first couple of touches, especially remember at Leeds United, he's someone that he doesn't care if something goes wrong. He's always willing to try the almost impossible kind of thing. And I think those type of players Barcelona fans have come to absolutely adore. And listen, I'm not going to say he's on the level of talent of Ronaldinho, Messi, and all these players. He's not on that level of talent, but he's got a similar mindset in terms of he will back himself to beat two players, get on his left foot and curl one in from 30 yards. He will back himself to do that. And I just think he gives Barcelona fans that sense of excitement. He brings that excitement to the front three, especially if Dembele's not on the pitch. If Dembele's like the backup right winger, I think Fati and Lewandowski both, probably going to deliver more output, but both more sort of robotic kind of players, both kind of get on the end of chances rather than making the chances happen themselves, if that makes kind of sense. I think Raphinha's got that outstanding moment in him. That moment that can win you a game away at Atletico Madrid when you're getting frustrated for 90 minutes. He can pop one in from 20 yards from absolutely nothing. It's that big game moments in him kind of thing. And that's something Barcelona have significantly lacked, I think, in the last couple of years. It gives you that side to him. But obviously his biggest strength is his dribbling and just that unpredictability about him. Dembele, despite being such an amazing dribbler, probably even a better dribbler than Raphinha, it's kind of only really, you never feel like Dembele's going to pop one in for 30 yards kind of thing. I don't think he's got that ball striker from distance. I think he is very much a creator now. Raphinha's different. I just think Raphinha's got that potential, maybe a bit of a question mark about how consistently he can do it, but he's got that potential to do anything you can imagine on the football pitch kind of thing. And there's not that many forwards you can say that about. The question is, how consistently can he do that, if that makes sense? So I'd say, the dribbling and unpredictability will be something that very much makes him a popular player straight away. I think obviously his mentality, I think how many times you've seen Barcelona just mess it up in the Champions League, go into a tough away game, Bayern Munich, or a Liverpool away, and then everyone just freezes.
Yeah.
I feel like Raphinha would.
I mean, Eintracht Frankfurt at home in the Europa League, big moments.
Exactly. It's one of them. I feel Barcelona haven't enough players who can perform in those situations. And this isn't just this particular era of Barcelona. Even with the Messi, Suarez, Neymar team, there was some very questionable away performances towards the end of that kind of era under Luis Enrique, where players just didn't really produce their absolute top performances. But you've got to remember, Raphinha has had a penalty to keep Leeds United in the Premier League, where if he misses it, you don't get another chance. Leeds are going into the Championship, and his whole everything he did at Leeds United that's the only thing you go back to is the fact he missed the penalty. And it sounds ridiculous, but it's how the way English football fans work. So he's had that biggest pressure moment in his life. Even if he's got a penalty in the Champions League final, if he misses it, you go again next year kind of thing. That was literally for his career almost, and for Leeds United, that he was on the line kind of thing. So it's the fact he scored that penalty as well, the fact he delivered in the big moments last season too. That's something I think that's kind of big. But if we go on to like the weaknesses, I think the area of his game that he has to improve is his movement off the ball in terms of getting into those goal-scoring situations. His goals were good last season, 11, but I still think there's more to him there. And I almost compare it to, it seems a weird comparison, but we guess like Mo Salah before he went to Liverpool. No one at the time before he went to Liverpool would have said Mo Salah's someone who's going to get you 20, 25 goals a season, no problem every single season. But after coaching under Klopp, he develops into that kind of player who got used to playing further inside and more as an inside forward, almost striker. I think Raphinha, that's his next step now. His finishing is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you watch every single goal he scored for Leeds was pretty much a wonder goal. Very, very few tap-ins kind of thing. And I still think if you can add to the wonder goals a couple of crappy little tap-ins from 3 or 4 yards, he can get 15, 20 goals a season, no question about it. But he doesn't get into those situations enough for my liking. He needs to get used to playing a bit further inside, a bit less taking on and making an absolute fool out of the left back, a bit more getting inside the left back and just getting into goal scoring situations. But I think with the Xavi, the way he's coached it into different players' games, the way he's improved every single player he's worked under at Barcelona, I do think Xavi's the man to get that out of him. He's used to playing with these kind of players. You know, when Xavi was a player, he knew exactly where he wanted that inside forward to be ahead of him so he could play a defensive pass or he could circulate the play to get the ball into him. I can't think of anyone better to get that improvement out of Raphinha, to be honest with you, in terms of who can speak, in terms of get the best out of certain players. I just feel like Xavi's that man. You know, I talk about Marcelo Bielsa being an unbelievable coach, because Marcelo Bielsa for me is one of the best coaches in the world. But in terms of getting a player to the very, very, very elite level, I do genuinely think Xavi is going to become that man for me in the future. And listen, if Raphinha improves that side of his game, even a little bit in terms of getting into situations, getting that XG up a little bit, you know, getting better quality chances, being a little less reliant on scoring rockets from 30 yards. You can still do that, but just get yourself into some nice other situations, more repeatable goals, like little tap-ins from well-worked moves and all this lot. Yeah, because not every goal Lionel Messi scored for Barcelona was a wonder goal from 30 yards. He did have the other side of his game as well, where he just had to get that little bit of movement, you know, get on the end of things. And that's just the next side of Raphinha's game. Because if he gets that up, he is, and I'm not going to hesitate to say this, he's absolutely unstoppable. Mm-hmm. He's unstoppable. If he can just improve that side of his game a little bit, yes, some will talk about his right foot, but there's a lot of players out there who haven't got a particularly good weak foot. I don't think he's as bad as what people say either. It's certainly not as good as his left foot, but he can still certainly whip in across with that right foot if needed and beat a player with his right foot as well. He's not as two-footed as Ousmane Dembele, but who is really. So yeah. I don't think Robert Lewandowski's left foot's particularly strong. So it's not a massive concern to me. You know, it doesn't really concern me that much, in all honesty. But if he can just improve that side of his game, use that athleticism to its absolute full potential, he will become unstoppable for me.
Well, I think very much like Dembele, Kool-Aid are going to question his positional play vis-a-vis his decision-making and one-touch passing as well. Like those are foundations of Barcelona. And I think those two aspects are going to be, again, questioned. And if he answers those questions, that's going to win Kool-Aid over very quickly, because it's going to win Xavi over very quickly. And what I will say is, the improvements that Serginho Dest made under Xavi already, as far as his positional play, his one-touch passing, again, now you're extrapolating that to a player with Raphinha's talent, which is a bit more than Serginho Dest, especially obviously on the ball. And you're saying that, okay, there is a path forward. Even at 25, it's not like he's not able to mold and change. And again, still at 25, a player entering his prime. Again, very much unlike Lewandowski, which is, again, going back to one of the main themes of this Raphinha signing. This is a player with resale value. Not that you're looking at him to sell him on, but he's a player that still is becoming the player that he might still be, again, in his prime season. Where, again, unlike Ansu and Pedri, who were superstars at 18, or you could at least say heavy, bright stars at 18, Raphinha has now taken just a few more years, I think 6 more years as a professional to become, I mean, I would say this was his first year being an actual star, right? Can I put that quote around that he was an actual star?
To be honest, for the first actually, he became more well-known this season because he played for Brazil. There's no question about that. But I think his very best performances came last season when we were better as a team in general, to be fair. You know, I think he got even more output last season. I think 6 goals, 9 assists, and he didn't even start his first game until mid-November. So he got easily 10 and 10, I think, last season. But yeah, and that's not to say he's dropping it. The only reason his numbers dropped this season was because the team wasn't as good. And we had Patrick Bamford missing for large spells of the season. And he was playing like Lewandowski in that first season. Obviously, tongue-in-cheek, but he was much better in that first season. But yeah, that's very, very key. But the thing to mention as well, obviously, the 25 thing is key to mention. But players develop at different speeds. You know, in terms of Mo Salah at 25, maybe a bit younger, but 24, 25, wasn't the player he is now. And Sadio Mane, and probably the greatest example of all is probably David Villa, to be totally honest with you. In terms of David Villa at 25 was only just kind of making his way that Valencia team where he's becoming a real star. And it almost feels a bit like a David Villa signing because he's someone who just gives you the goals, the assists, and the versatility. He's not at David Villa's level, but his determination, because David Villa improved massively as a player when he went to Barcelona. He was still a superstar before he signed, but in terms of as the all-round package, he develops massively in positional play in terms of transitioning from being an out-and-out centre forward to more of a left-sided forward or a right-sided forward. And that's kind of what Raphinha's going to have to learn. It's a totally different role to his role at Leeds United, but in terms of the physicality, the way he strikes the ball, yeah, I don't think there's any question he can make that move for me, and he can be someone who can deliver in the big moments and get double figures for goals, double figures for assists, which is ultimately what the ultimate ambition is.